I'm Rick Soper, author of The Singer. This is my second episode of the reading series, and this time I'm going to be reading from my second book, The Singer. But before I get started, I need to warn you that this chapter includes bad language and some very graphic descriptions. The bad language I'll bleep out, but the graphic descriptions are part of the story, so I'm just going to warn you before I get started. And now, here is The Singer. "Come on, Eric," Editor-in-Chief Chuck Easton growled. "Call me back already. This is getting ridiculous." He slammed his hands against the push bar of the security door that led out of the Monterey Herald building. Hecker hadn't returned his calls in 2 days. At first, Easton had assumed that Hecker had been shit-faced drunk, celebrating his first syndicated story in years. Usually, the man was like an angry dog with a bone when he got a hold of a story. And this wasn't just any story. It was the kind that most reporters waited their entire career for. Easton had been expecting an avalanche of follow-ups, detailing the failure of the FBI to find the killer, or lurid interviews with witnesses. Hecker should have been all over it. Instead, he'd gone AWOL. "Damn it, Pecker," Easton barked, his silent phone still clutched in his hand. He'd known what kind of man he was getting when he'd hired Hecker. Trouble followed him wherever he went, and every other editor he'd talked to had said avoid him. But damn, he could write. So Easton had hired him and found that with great talent, like great beauty, it came with the flip side that turned out to be pretty damn ugly. Hecker was every inch the pecker that everyone called him. Right now, though, he could really use that. Stories were coming in fast and furious. First, Raven McShane got kidnapped. Then, some hacker took over all the TV channels in the United States and broadcast a message that something was coming to Monterey. All this while the FBI, and not just the FBI, but John Stevens, was fumbling around with the local sheriff trying to figure out how Brooke Knight ended up in a bonfire with her heart cut out. Now that Raven McShade's body had turned up with her skull hollowed out jack-o'-lantern, the Knight murder promised to be just the beginning. Without Hecker, he was actually going to have to go out and cover the story himself. It had been years since he'd written a story. Sure, he could edit the hell out of one, but actually having the sources, asking the right questions, and knowing how to get the best angle was something that came from being out there day after day. He was severely out of practice, and he knew it. But without Hecker, he was out of options. He brought his hand up to his neck and rubbed futilely at the knots as he walked through the tree-lined courtyard towards the parking lot. He'd spent the last 6 hours working and reworking stories so he could put tomorrow's edition to bed. Now he had to go cover another. He paused a moment at the archway, at the end of the courtyard, took a deep breath, rolled his head around until his neck cracked, and walked out towards his car, only to realize as he pulled his keys out that he didn't have a recorder, a notebook, or a pen. Shit, he didn't even have a pencil. God damn it, Hecker. He turned back towards the paper and stopped dead cold. His keys fell out of his hand and hit the pavement as his stomach turned and he felt the chili that he'd had for dinner rising in his throat. His heart pounded in his chest and his body started to shake as he struggled to process the horror in front of him. It had to be a trick of the light. He was so tired he was hallucinating. Leaning against the wall of the building, lit by the yellow light of the streetlights lining the parking lot, was the naked, broken body of a man. His arms and legs were pointed out in neck shape, similar to Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, but with a thick wooden stake, half again as long as the man was tall, had been rammed through his body from ass to mouth. Impaled. Easton whispered to himself as he half fell against his car, and then his eyes caught the man's face, and he realized in an instant why his phone had gone silent. "Hecker," he whispered. Realizing who the man was shook him out of his shock and into paranoia. He looked around the empty parking lot to see if the sick bastard who'd done this was anywhere nearby. Then he licked his lips slowly, pulled the phone out of his pocket, and dialed letting it ring until a sleepy voice answered. "Yeah? Jason, it's Chuck. Chuck, at 3 in the morning. I know what time it is, but I need you here now." He heard a shuffling sound as the Herald's best photographer sat up. "What's going on?" "Just get here. Don't shower. Don't eat. I don't give a if you put your clothes on. Just get here now." Jason would know that Easton was giving him the chance of a lifetime when he got there. He leaned against the car, keeping half an eye on Hecker's body. He flipped open a text program and started outlining the story. Eric Hecker was a pecker. But he had a nose for news, and his dogged approach to getting that news had led to his gruesome death. Headlines scrolled through Easton's head. "Tragedy strikes home. A murder in our family. Star reporter brutally killed." It almost didn't matter. The pictures alone would sell them out, and the syndicated story would be read around the world. He glanced up at Hecker's body, at the shattered mouth, the contorted limbs, and felt a strange sense of camaraderie. "Last headline, buddy," he said. Sure, his first call should have been to the cops, but they would shut the scene down, cover the body, and do whatever they could to keep the horror of the situation away from the public. He was going to get his pictures, get what he needed to put the story together, and then he'd call the cops. It was cold-blooded. It was calculated. It was exactly what the pecker would have done. And there you have it, the first chapter of The Singer. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be continuing the reading series, and you can look forward to more books coming soon. Once again, I'm Rick Soper, and thanks for watching.